just says LemonBucket Studios. Our voices are on it, but not our face.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the LemonBucket podcast. Today, of course, as always, we have Mr. Brian and I am Mr. Nick. So, for today's wonderful podcast, we're going to be talking a little bit about technology and stuff and have a conversation around sort of Mac versus PC. And I think that'll lead into a couple other conversations around like new technologies that creatives can get start utilizing to help support their own work. And I think there's a lot of really interesting stuff coming out now and coming out on the horizon that I think we can chit chat about a little bit. So, Ryan, do you have anything to say before we have our discussion on the wonders of Macintosh?
Well, I'm coming to you from a PC. I own a Mac. I've owned two Mac computers, I think. Two of them. A MacBook Pro 2012, mid 2012, 13-inch. That was an i7 model. With like 8 gigs of RAM is what it came with back then. And my 2017, the one I have now is 2017 iMac 5K Retina, 27-inch one, and I like it, and I don't like it for certain reasons. So I have I have dogs in both sides of the fight, so to speak.
See.
Yeah.
Yeah, I used to be on Mac and then I switched over a couple, I would say like 4 years ago, maybe five. Yeah, 4 years ago. And I haven't looked back. So I'm probably not gonna be the best person to chit chat about this because I'm firmly on the PC camp of things. But I would like to pick your brain a little bit of the Mac side of things because I remember when I used to use Mac and everything, and I was a staunch Mac guy for a long time. And it would just be nice to pick your brain about what benefits you think you got from the Mac side of things versus your PC. So you mentioned that you there are things that you do like about the Mac. Can I ask what those are? Because I don't have any.
There are a few pretty great movement, like just like ease of life things that I really like about Mac. You can have multiple open applications, right, and have them be full screen, uh, or like Windows, whatever. And especially I do this with Windows within the same app, and then use like for example, Control and arrow key will switch between full screen windows. So that's like one of the fastest navigation things that I've ever been able to use. Like especially when from like a music production or like an editing standpoint, if you're like have a window and maybe if you don't have like another uh window available, like I have multiple monitors, but sometimes I am using it for something else and you want to be able to move to another window really quickly, using control and arrow key is like there's not really something that's equivalent to that on the PC, I don't
PC
think.
side.
Yeah,
Because yeah,
I mean,
because
obviously
like
alt tab
Mac
is
has got
like,
that like multiple desktop thing, right? Where you can have multiple different desktops that you can flip between really quickly.
so
Windows definitely
yeah,
doesn't
so
have that.
having that is really cool. That like is really cool. It also I think introduces some problems because you end up running more apps. If you're not careful, you end up running more apps really than you need to be at one time, and then that's like resource hogging. And so over time, I think that it like I don't know if it's the best choice to do it that way. But you know, it is useful if you need to be doing that. I work, I work from home for my main source of income, and my main job, my main gig is essentially I need to have a Mac because everybody else is on Macs, and we're sharing files and stuff like that, and we need to be able to. It just everything needs to be on the Mac ecosystem, and there's certain programs that we use that are Mac only. Uh, the main ones aren't, like Pro Tools and things like that, but so I almost would say that there's not that many to me, looking at it from an honest user, from somebody that uses Mac every single day for work, or every single work day for work, at
Mhm.
least. And then I also, think that Mac is great to use for people that just want to have a really great, easy experience. Like old people that want something that's super easy to use, that they don't care about how much money it costs because they just want it to work with everything, right? That's
I do
something
find
that
it funny that Mac is like the old people's computer because they put so much time and marketing and effort into like how like sleek and like new and fancy their designs and stuff are, and it's
they're kind
definitely
of
like
like, the ironic thing is that the fact that they put that effort into that, into making everything easy and compatible, it like creates this like kind of thing that older people can't, like a hurdle that older people can't get over, like uh when their shit goes wrong, like if they forget their password or something like that, or they get logged out of their iCloud or whatever, then
mhm,
there's like 14 different, if they have a lot of Apple devices, there's all these different things that are going to be like, oh, you need to put in your iCloud. Oh, this device too, you need to put in your iCloud. This device too,
I
you need to
feel
put
like
in your
iCloud
iCloud.
is one thing that if it breaks, your entire none of your devices will work. Period.
Yeah, all of your devices will be like, you need to put it every single time you use it. It's going to be just like that's your Apple life. And it's kind of funny that
Mhm,
that's a thing that people are like, oh, Apple's great as long as you can remember your password, because then all of your devices won't like sync and shit like that. And it's just funny because I think that old people don't solve that stuff very fast, or at least in my experience, like
mhm.
talking with them and solving their problems. So
Well,
it's just,
granted, with PCs though, like a lot of stuff can go wrong with them, which I actually kind of like because it means that you can mess with your PC a shit ton and build it and make it your own and make it fit what you
right.
need it. But a thousand things can break on that and pretty easily, or at least with Mac, I guess it's not as like other than losing your iCloud account, everything else is pretty you know foolproof for the most
Yeah.
part. Like you have to try to break it.
Uh, I think that over time, uh, other people might disagree with me about this, but I've all of the Macs that I've had over time have get a little too slow. They get slow over
Yeah,
time.
mine too. Like I mean, I used to have obviously Mac Macs all the time and stuff, and like after 4 years or whatever, your Mac is kind of just barely trucking along at that point. Where I've
Yeah,
had this
and like,
laptop for about the same amount of time as I usually have my other things, and I don't even think I'm going to get rid of it for another 2 years. The only thing I might have to
yeah,
do is switch out the GPU, but everything else in it's perfectly fine. It operates great. I have no issues. It's hasn't slowed down an inch, and I would agree. I think a lot of times the Macs would just, and I think they're kind of built for it too. I think there is a bit of a planned obsolescence built into the Mac ecosystem that doesn't really exist on the PC side because PC side, like everyone's sort of building their own,
yeah.
parts and
Well,
stuff. And
we
additionally,
know
I
that
also think,
exists on the phone side. It's confirmed,
oh
right, that it
yeah,
exists on the phone side.
yeah,
Like, we would maybe like to think that it doesn't really impact their personal computing, or and their like and their towers and stuff like that. But I think, I don't know, man. Like, it's hard. You build an all-in-one device, and it kind of makes me wish that I would have gone with because one of my really good friends built a iMac Mini, and it just is a beast. It is a little tiny beast.
Hmm.
6 core or something like that. Like,
Hmm.
for what he's doing, it's pretty great. So that's gonna be cheaper than an iMac, and it's not a giant
But was it
screen.
like a
Uh,
Hackintosh or was it actually a
no, it was iMac Mini, or sorry, it was a Mac Mini.
Mac
Did I
Mini?
say Mac Mini? Mac Mini.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, I don't know if you like because you said he built it, and I know that Apple doesn't give out their parts. So,
No, no, but that's maybe a little bit better option. Uh, I just think that the main thing is that they're kind of like expanding upward, and I don't know if they always know like who their clientele is and like what they want. They like
yeah,
try really hard, I think, but I don't know. I always feel like maybe I'm not their clientele. Like they could, you know, I just don't understand why they don't take a couple different approaches. Like the new Mac Pro is so ridiculously overpriced, and they took every single opportunity that they could to you to make it essentially really engineered in a way that is like very pristine, but also extremely, extremely expensive and never cutting corners, right? And so that's why it's so expensive. Um, and it's not really. It doesn't feel like it's expensive. Like I don't know. It doesn't need to be that expensive. Like they could have made it a really solid PC that looked really, really good.
hmm
Um, without
well,
all
yeah,
of the
it's
really, really
stupidly.
expensive molding and like everything's like stainless steel or whatever.
Well,
Um,
it's I mean honestly like that even all that stuff isn't that
so
expensive.
so
Honestly, it's
shiny.
I think it's just their markup on the premium and stuff. Because again, like you can buy a PC that has pretty good like an aluminum shelled PC isn't going to run you that much more than an old PC, right? Um, but for some reason they just have to have this $5,000 computer that doesn't run any better than most like $1,500 PC computers. Um,
And the
and
fact and the gall
yeah,
that they would make it like the max is 50,000. Is like if you max it out, that's
mhm.
50,000. That's more expensive than than some cars.
Yeah,
For
more
it's
expensive than
insane.
most cars.
Yeah, for them most cars. Yeah. I
Yeah,
mean maybe not like a giant truck or something. Some
yeah, yeah,
trucks
yeah.
are get up there, but I don't it's just like it's just crazy to me that the Cybertruck, right? How much was the Cybertruck? Isn't it like
Oh, that
cheaper
thing's
than
gonna be like
it's
no. The Cybertruck's gonna be like I don't know how much it is, but it's gonna be like I think at least 100,000, if not more.
Do you think so? I thought it was going to be relatively affordable.
I know
What
the
was the thing
Model
that he
3 is like
made?
30K.
Oh, damn. Okay. Yeah, that maybe that's what I was thinking of. Model 3, 30K. There you go.
Yeah.
Tesla
But
car is cheaper than this computer
than the
maxed out.
computer. And I mean I know you can do that on PCs and stuff, but if you do that on PCs, you're building yourself a fucking warehouse of a tank. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
you're multi CPU
Multiple
systems with like
yeah, multiple
1,000 gigs of
graphics
RAM,
cards.
multiple graphics
Yeah.
cards. Yeah,
The whole works. And it's gonna slay. Yeah, it's gonna be insane. And Apple's like, nope, you get a really effective piece like computer. It's really
yeah.
effective.
You get a really pretty computer. I wonder.
It's
So
it's just
as
crazy.
as a
It's crazy.
creative, I want to pick your brain a little bit because I remember Apple years ago, sort of like kind of was pretty shitty to I think a lot of it's like professional creator class and customers. And when they came out with the little trash can Mac Pro, um, and I feel like um, I'm interested to get your like opinions on how they're pivoting right now because this was obviously a pivot to try and I think get that market back again. But I honestly just don't see how they're going to.
So here's the thing. they're not going to get the market of like entrepreneur, like hustler creatives, right? Because a lot of those people can't necessarily afford, you know, those products, the products that they sell. Like straight up, they can't. Apple products are expensive, so you can get them on credit. So you can do that, and some people do that. So that's a great option if you want to do that. If you have good credit, you can go and get Apple products and sell your soul a little bit. I think you have to sell a little bit of your soul. It's in
It's required. It's in the
EULA.
contract.
It's in the EULA. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh, the ULA EULA.
Do
Ula
you? Because
Bagatula.
I don't think that they do have a future, to be honest, in the creative
So,
space. And I'm curious to see
so I
if
don't.
you do think they are, because I've got a couple reasons
I was
why, but I
getting
want
there.
to hear your options
I was getting there.
first.
Yeah, I was getting there. So I don't think that for the. Here's the thing: is that businesses like the business I work for that I'm employed by, we don't have Mac Pros there, but the video guys have trash cans. I'm pretty sure, and they might have just gotten some 2020 Mac. They probably, I don't know, but we all have iMacs, right? And they're like 2018 or 2019 iMacs or something like that. The one that I have is 2020. I'm pretty sure because it was like that model or whatever the newest iMac model is when I got there. So my point is, companies are gonna fork out whatever money that they think they need to make it easy, right? Like they're willing to pay the cost to make everything as easy and compatible as possible. And Apple has that going for them because just like the fact that everybody is just already doing it, like the next upgrade they buy, they're just gonna be like, well, we're already on Apple, so we can't
Might as well
switch.
just stick with it. That
You
feels a
know,
lot like actually like Windows mentality, like back in like the 2000s stuff. It's like every business has it. Might as well just stick with that
until there's
market.
some big shift where like certain things become obsolete. The thing is that like the technology moves so fast, and back then it's like we moved technology super super. I mean, I know that we're doing it fast now, but for computing, we moved it super super fast in a short period of time, and so I feel like all the stuff that was old is like got obsolete like kind of
Really quick.
quick. Yeah, right. So that's
Yeah.
kind of where it's different. Although now Apple's already does that. Like they ship stuff with, you know, processors that are like last generation and stuff like that.
Yeah,
They'll
I
always
feel
do
like they
that.
always have, to be honest. Like
Yeah.
their processors and all their stuff always seem to be like a generation behind.
And they kind of like rely on the fact that most of their consumers like don't really care.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? Like people buying a not even a Mac Pro. Like some Mac Pros maybe, but like people buying like a MacBook, like a lot of them don't really care about the processing speed that much because like what are they going to be
Yeah,
doing that is, maybe a little bit of light video editing on iMovie or something like that. You
yeah.
know, that's it. They're not going to do anything crazy. So I
Creative
think that for
world,
most
things are
people,
getting
it's not
so.
really. And then for businesses it's easy, and so they already have that grapple. The only thing, like, they're going to lose more and more and more of that creative like startup, or not startup, but the creative like entrepreneur market, who like the people like us who are, not just made of money, and they're looking for like what's the most effective thing that's going to last, that I'm going to be able to fix and stuff like that, right?
Mhm,
Like if my Mac goes wrong, then I have to go to the Mac store or like watch a lot of freaking YouTube videos to
mhm.
fix it and figure out how to open it up, right? Um,
And
but
as soon as you
if
open it up, you void the warranty, and the cops come and arrest you.
yeah, the Apple police, right?
Yeah, the Apple police
The
come and even try and
yeah,
put you in
the
Apple jail.
Apple police. They come in. What do? They take away your iPhone. Joke's on you guys. I got a razor. So
I was really hoping you're gonna pull up an old flip phone, but that's okay. Um,
I
yeah,
wish I
and
had an old flip phone to pull up.
oh yeah, the old razors. Yeah, I think um, I think you're right when it comes to creatives who are like you and me, kind of, because this is a conversation I've had with everybody who's in like either the film or the world, or whatever. Everyone's switching over to
Yeah.
PCs. The power requirements for our work now are just so big. Like everything requires just an exponential amount of computing power in every single way, from the processor to the GPU to the RAM. Like you need something that is big and robust enough to run those uh, really like power hungry programs. And Mac just does not give you the power, and that's the conversations I'm having with a lot of people. But I think that Mac is actually going to start falling far, far, far behind PCs on the sort of the creative game, not just because of the power question, but also primarily because of NVIDIA. So Apple has basically burned that bridge with NVIDIA. They exclusively use AMD graphics cards, which AMD has done okay for a good amount of time. They've made decent graphics cards and really good processors that are significantly cheaper than their competitors. But
Right.
NVIDIA has been spending a ton of time and energy working on artificial intelligence that they can utilize within their graphics cards. And right now, we're just starting to see that sort of come to fruition in a lot of different ways. There's a ton of programs that have come out and are going to come out relatively soon that AMD just can't do anything with, and they can only be done um, with NVIDIA graphics cards, primarily the RTX system, but a lot of these programs do work backwards on the GTX systems. And I think Misha says Raspberry Pi for the win.
What? Raspberry Pi for the win?
Raspberry Pi, it's been confirmed, is the best computer for all creators. Um, and and just to sort of prove a point in real time, I'm actually using one of NVIDIA's newer AI systems called RTX Voice. And what it basically does is in real time, it cuts out background noise and audio from the system. And I know you can't hear it now, but right now I actually have a fan going on in the background, and I just kicked it up in the full gear. And you may not be able to hear it that much in the audio, although it'll probably mess up my voice a little bit. But let me turn this AI system off and just hear how loud it is. Right? Like that's what's going on in the
That's
background
crazy.
right now, and I can turn this on and off whenever I want, and it'll automatically cut out the background noise. And as a creative like me, who like, okay, so my options are get a really nice, um, yeah. So I just turned the system back on. You can hear how quieter it is. For a creative like me, like the option is either build out a really nice audio thing, get a huge computer that has like a really low fan output, or get a water cooler system and shell out, another $500 to $1,000 worth of like microphones and water cooled systems and all that, or just run this AI system. And that's become so much more and more common that I think Apple is just the fact that they're committed 100% to AMD systems is just never going to be able to compete with again. And I think that's going to become way more important and way more valuable to the creative markets, even inside of businesses and companies. I think like businesses and companies who do this kind of work, I think are just going to have to switch over. Because imagine how much time on the podcast that you would spend getting rid of like pops and getting rid of like clicks and stuff like that. Like, imagine if you can just do that through an AI system. Like, you're gonna do that, right? It
Yeah, I
saves you
mean,
that much time.
yeah, that's true. The only argument I would have is that I think um, studios that are already invested, some businesses already have invested in, the proper, air quotes are on proper, but the proper way to do things like recording studio, like having good microphones, having sound treated rooms and stuff like that.
Hmm.
And so I can't see a situation where if somebody wants to have really like well recorded audio that they
Oh,
wouldn't go
most
to
certainly.
like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
Well, I mean,
So
no one's gonna do this. And like, you're not gonna bring someone to like your back bedroom. However, if you can pair that big studio with the AI system to get rid of
yeah,
all those like little things, you're gonna do it, right?
absolutely. I
And
totally
like,
do
if
agree.
Mac
By the way,
doesn't offer that,
Misha asked a question. I don't know if
I
you
know.
want
I was
to.
actually going to get to that. So, Misha,
Oh,
in answer to your question, yeah. So, Mac is terrible for streaming. Mac is one of the like. Okay, so we run OBS for our live streams and stuff, and Mac won't even let you run audio into OBS. It's a nightmare of a system. So definitely go with the PC to build. I would recommend always build. Actually, I'm
it'll save
helping
you a lot of
our
money.
other business partner Eric build out his computer right now. And we got him a really good setup for about 1,200, maybe 1,300 after taxes, somewhere around there. That will give you all of the streaming stuff that you could need. So I would recommend probably a AM if you want to write this down, Misha. And we can talk about this later, Misha, if you want. But I would recommend a AMD processor, probably the Ryzen 5 or the Ryzen 7. They're really good processors and they're significantly cheaper than the Intels. I would recommend a NVIDIA graphics card, probably a RTX 2070 is probably your best bang for your buck. Um, the um, the there are rumors that the 3000 series is coming out soon, but honestly, I would go ahead and just say buy the 2070, even if the 3070 comes out in September or whatever, because the difference that it's going to be is going to be nominal. And then from there, just get yourself a couple of the Ryzen. I believe it depends on the version. So the Ryzen 5 has quad core. The Ryzen 7, I believe, is an 8 core system. Let me double check that.
I think you're
But the
right,
Ryzen,
but
I
you
think the
should
Ryzen
check.
7 is an eight core system.
You should check. Those Ryzen's have really good value. Really
Yeah,
good value.
like they're only like 10% they're like 5 to 10% the processing power, less processing power than the Intel versions, but they're like 100 to 200 bucks cheaper. It's stupid. Yeah, the
Yeah.
Ryzen 7 is an 8 core system. So yeah, Ryzen 7 is
And
an
what
eight
does
core
that run
system.
for?
Ryzen 5 is a huh? Ryzen
What does it run
7
for?
runs for on a Newegg, the 3700, which I think is last is
Latest model.
27 $270. Toothpick.
Wow.
So yeah.
Look at
Um
see, it's crazy. I built my PC in November of 2016. Just doing taxes, so I know. I
you
know
know
all the
exactly what it
dates of
was.
when I bought things now. Yeah. So so it's crazy to think of how much I spent for that PC, for this PC then, and what you could get, I could essentially get the PC for like a third of the cost now, basically. The same PC, or like probably like half the cost. Like if you think about like the same parts that I used,
Mhm.
I think that it's just crazy how cheap. Like solid state drives were so much more expensive when I was first building my PC. Like that was one of the most expensive things I remember. Solid state drives were crazy expensive. Graphics cards. I feel like I don't know have they been. They've been they've rose a lot and then they dropped. They kind of evened out a little
As
bit,
far as
right?
pricing goes.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so that happened. So that was a weird little confluence of a couple of different things. So
That was kind of
the when
interesting.
we had the Bitcoin thing happen around the
Yeah,
same time, and at the exact same time that people were buying stuff with the bit miners, um, Nvidia halted production for all of their graphics cards because they're going to switch to the 20 series, right? So those two things happened at the exact same time, and that just made the price of these things shoot up so huge. And Misha, you are correct. The just checked it up. The Ryzen 5 is actually a 6-core system with hyperthreading. So that is correct.
Yeah, quad core sounded a little low.
Yeah, I mean, so
It's
yeah,
6 cores are like standard now. Six
yeah.
cores are pretty standard now. There's almost like no computers that come with
Of course,
desktop
I
computers
think
with
mine was
quad cores.
mine's got the KB Lake in it, the i7, and I think the generation after that, I think the 8000 series generation was the last one to do quad core, and then the 9000s is
Yeah,
switched to
same with mine. Mine was mine is I think was mine KB Lake?
Is it a 770?
It is a 6700K.
Oh, yours would be Coffee Lake.
Oh yeah,
I think
that's right. Yeah, that's right.
does KB come after that?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I wanted to
but it was
getting back on track. I wanted to go back to oh, nice. I wanted to get back to the AI stuff just to showcase some of the stuff that's sort of coming out with NVIDIA. So here's one, the thing that I just showed you, but here's a test video of it just to show you how crazy it kind of is. So here is a test of the system.
In one place. Oh, there we go.
Can you hear it, Brian?
So we are now current limited at 5.2 amps. I think this thing's able to do about 92 decibels, so you actually don't want to be around it for too long. So I'm just going to start speaking into this microphone here, and I'm going to turn RTX on. And I'm going to be genuinely impressed if it's able to get rid of that. I'm also just going to start playing the drum because you know what? We're going to just make the loudest possible racket. Totally see if it has any chance at all at dealing with this.
And you just can't hear it at all.
Thank you, Andy. Join in with the noise.
That's insane.
Okay. Yeah, so just go back here. Stay 6 feet away. The siren.
You want the siren thing?
Yeah, I want the siren.
All right, you asked for it.
Hello, I am speaking into this microphone, and I'm going to be very impressed if RTX is able to get rid of this. So, we are talking right now. Hello, I am speaking into this microphone, and I'm going to be very impressed if RTX is able to get rid of this.
You can actually tell what I'm saying.
We are talking right now, and now I'm going to turn RTX off.
Like, listen to that.
I don't know if... All right.
Alright, so I have to give it to you and me speaking,
So like just like, and obviously at the end there, I mean, Brian, you probably definitely picked up on this, like his audio from his like speaking was definitely garbled a little bit, like it was definitely like had digital artifacting in there, but seeing how far that they were able to push and still pull back decent audio is quite impressive. And I could see this being a huge value even to like people in like not just in the streaming world but in the film
filmmakers.
Yeah, or even just regular like low budget filmmakers. Because think about like when you're on an actual set and stuff, and you just spend so much time soundproofing your, like if you're on a set when you have a a road outside, you have to spend so much time soundproofing your set, making sure everything is like soft padded blanket, like sound blankets up everywhere. And imagine if you just go in there and be like, hey AI, cut out anything that's not somebody's voice. Like,
yeah, so what I'll say is it's going to definitely raise the standard for audio for filmmakers that don't like have a sound designer. That's how I think of it, right? Because I don't even think of this really as a sound design tool. I mean, it is like really.
Well,
I don't know if
it would be to isolate. It'd be just to isolate people's vocals and then build the other sounds on top of that.
Like, yeah, I guess that you could do that. My thought is that a lot of people. That's why. Okay, so again, this goes more towards the home filmmaker, the indie filmmaker, the things like this. Like it's not going to be used in a studio or anything like that.
You're not going to have
everybody's making a YouTube video. YouTube video makers, any content makers like streamers. Can you you can apply this live, obviously, because you just did.
Yeah, that's what I'm doing that right now. That's why you don't hear my
Twitch
fan in the
streamers,
background.
yeah. So Twitch streamers, it's on working. It's amazing for all of those things. And so you need an NVIDIA graphics card.
Yeah,
It's
it won't work on
crazy
anything else.
that
Because it's actually the graphics card that does the processing on it. It runs it through the
yeah,
graphics card to
that's what I was
process
gonna
it.
say. Like, it's crazy that the graphics card is actually doing that
Processing the graphics
for
card
audio.
processing the audio. I know. But
Yeah.
I even though okay, so I agree with you. I don't think something like this, and I don't think this would actually be used in like big film stuff. But I think a program like it could definitely be used.
You
And
hear
I
that,
think
Pro Tools?
yeah, Pro
Use
Tools.
my freaking graphics card. Jesus.
But like I could definitely see like obviously like Marvel isn't gonna do this when they have this giant like backlot green screen thing. They've got their audio stuff set. But think about all the big studios that still shoot on locations, right? And it's really hard on a location to actually cut out all of the sounds. Think about every show that's shot in like a New York street where they had to cut off like 3 blocks of the street just so they could clear out all of the sound from that area. And then fill it in with mock people. Imagine if you didn't have to cut all those things out. You can only section off a small area. Like that would make productions way cheaper. And I guarantee, even a studio as big as Marvel, when they do a shoot on location in New York, they're gonna use that thing just to save money. So.
Sure.
Like,
yeah. It'll certainly get used. People are still going to do ADR. Automatic dialogue replacement. People are going to replace dialogue, like, because that's going to sound better. Like, it's not that this doesn't sound amazing. Like, obviously, it is fantastic, and I'm an audio snob or whatever. Like, it's so effective for just being like. I'm gonna download it now. I have an NVIDIA graphics card. Like, I'm gonna
I'll send you the work there. So it's technically only built for the RTX, but there's a workaround. But
Oh, okay. I understand.
It's technically only built for the RTX, but there's an easy it's a super fast workaround to get it working with the GTA systems. So I'll send you that stuff after the show. But I wanted to show you guys a couple other things that NVIDIA has been working on that I think are impressive and amazing. And again, going back to the fact that Apple's not going to have access to any of this stuff. And they're not even going to be able to integrate it into other programs. Like, there's nothing stopping somebody else from integrating what we're going to see here into Adobe. And Adobe is actually starting to work really closely with NVIDIA right now because NVIDIA is doing all the processing for their Sensei AI systems, which they've actually just utilized to remake the Roto tool in After Effects. So it's called Roto Tool 2 or Roto Brush 2. It's not implemented yet, but you can use it in the beta system, and it makes it 1,000 times better. Adobe is going to probably start integrating a lot of this AI technology from NVIDIA into their own systems. In fact, they already have. So they just started doing GPU acceleration for video playback, video encoding. They just implemented that into Premiere and Media Encoder. But that only works for NVIDIA. You can't do that with AMD yet. You probably will be able to do that with AMD soon, but like it just shows you like not having access to those cards, to the NVIDIA cards, is going to stunt Apple so much when it comes to this kind of stuff. Because AMD is probably around, they're on par with NVIDIA when it comes to just the power, but they are generations behind when it comes to AI implementation. So I wanted to showcase this little thing of some stuff that NVIDIA is working on. So that's a system that gets rid of your background without a green screen.
Oh, wow.
And it's not perfect, but it doesn't look too bad. Nisha, this might remind you of something. They're starting to implement the style transfer stuff that I was showing you guys before into their systems now. And so like that just gives you like a quick example of some stuff that they're working on releasing in the next couple. This is what they're going to release in a couple months, let alone like a couple years from now. And so this is stuff like the green screen or the automated matting without green screen that you saw is something that I could see being greatly valuable for compositing work. The tracing system that they did on someone's face and mouth is something that we use in character animators sometimes, but being able to do that live and that quickly to put on any model, it's going to be very that kind of motion capture work is going to be very valuable uh, to a lot of like filmmakers and creatives and stuff. And again, Apple's not going to have access to any of that.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean those are all really great points, and I think that Apple falls behind in those aspects. I don't think that there's many people that are developing uh, AI apps, like really any type of AI on Apple computers. Like, what would be the point,
Mhm.
right? So I think that Apple, I gotta say, I would say Apple's gotta do something, but they really don't. I don't think they have to do anything. I mean, they have half of the, half of the world, probably more than half of the world, like using their phones. They have a large portion of the computing market. Now they're
Mhm.
the watch market. I don't know,
Yes.
man. Like they don't really
I
have to do anything. There's like definitely I would like it if they moved in different directions, but in all honesty, I don't expect that to be something that they do.
Yeah, I think they'll have to. I think they're gonna stick with the smaller end market. And I think us creatives, we're gonna have to move like everyone's just gonna have to move over to PC.
Yep. I concur.
And I think Nvidia kind of knows this too. I think because they're pushing hard on all this AI stuff pretty extensively, and they know Apple's not going to have access to any of it. And one thing that they've been doing, and I don't know if you've looked at the uh, NVIDIA's new computing system, but NVIDIA just started a new system called the RTX Studio, in which they are working with other developers, other computer manufacturers to build really top of the line and still sleek and movable computing systems that I think are designed to
Yeah.
compete with Apple. Like if you look at a lot of the designs of these things, and I'll pull it up, um, it looks like they are really committing to trying to compete with, not just Apple's, powerhouse stuff, but also the aesthetics and stuff, and do stuff that Apple can't, like play, um, do seamless playback for like 6K video and stuff. So like if you look here, like this is it sits around the same price point as like the top end MacBook Pro, sitting right around $3,000. But this you get RTX 2080. With the Mac Pro, you only get a AMD Radeon that only has 4 gigs of virtual memory. The 2080 has 8. You have a 4K display. I think the MacBook Pro only has a 2K display. It's the Retina display, but I think it's only 2K. An Intel i7, that's pretty much on par with the same one that the Mac has, and 32 gigs of RAM. Where the top of the line Mac, let's see if I can pull it up here, has 16 gigs of RAM. Like it's not even close as far as the power goes. And I think just the ability for NVIDIA to utilize its AI is going to, get them even further and further ahead of Apple. And the only thing I think Apple has for it now is the aesthetic of its operating system. That's about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think NVIDIA knows this, and which is why I think they're investing so heavily in the RTX Studio system.
Apple's
I don't know.
little apps that I think that they've tried to do things like this, with their apps, And they certainly have tried to do things that work with the Apple system that are kind of cool, but I don't think that they've used anything that's been actually super effective. I don't know. Showed a while ago. They showed their AR demo, right, on that you can do with the new iPhone. Yeah, remember that?
Yeah.
Is it was
Yep.
uh, via Minecraft or whatever? They showed it via
Yeah.
Minecraft. Um,
Which is funny because Minecraft is owned by Windows.
yeah. So that's kind of that's funny in itself. Yeah, I didn't even think of that when I was bringing it up. But I think that Apple's things are more gimmicky. They're not really useful, right? They had those like smiley face emoji things that make your face. They what do they call them? Animojis or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, like the animated emojis.
So those things are all kind of gimmicky, right? They don't feel like useful tools. Like Nvidia's creating these kind of like useful, like actual tools that you can use. Like obviously it's a tool because you're using it right now and it's having an effect, right? How many like tools does Apple have that have really great built-in effects like that? There's
Mhm.
really zero. I mean, they have good apps. They have a couple good apps. I'll rephrase that. They have a couple okay apps. Like the apps that they make that Apple makes, like the ones that come with Apple are honestly, people almost always like all the things that are that like none of them are professional apps, right?
Yeah. But I mean,
It's
like
not like your
I got
computer.
my start with iMovie, so I mean, I get it.
Yeah, for sure. Like it's not
GarageBand,
to say that you can't make something on it because obviously, that's you're limited by your creativeness. You're not limited by the technology that you're on. You can find interesting ways around that, or you could just, figure out a good workflow or whatever. People do it all the time.
yeah.
So I'm getting into the corner of my screen. Can you guys see me?
Can you shrink? Can
Just
you go a little
just
lower?
one
Just
just
shrink
one
down.
eye.
Shrink down. Just one eye peering over the. Yeah.
That's
But
fine.
yeah. I think I don't know. I think that's all I have to say on the topic. I don't know if you have anything else to add into it. I think you're right with the gimmicky kind of nature of how Apple operates with a lot of its like AR stuff. And I think it is a lot of like Misha mentioned they have good UI, and actually Apple does have a really good UI. Their GUI interface is amazing, but I feel like that's the only thing they have.
Those little things, yeah. Those the navigation, like I mentioned, the first thing that I said about navigation and the UI, like the
I mean,
GUI,
true,
like
those things do
everything,
matter.
like all that stuff is really good. Like Apple does a really really good job with that. There's things about Windows that I get so annoyed about, like certain notifications that will pop up that will just decide to minimize, what I'm doing.
Mhm.
Uh,
Oh yeah,
and
I hate the
Apple doesn't
notifications
really
in
have
Windows.
like Apple really doesn't have a thing that interrupts your flow, you
Your
know.
workflow.
Um,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, unless you have like some kind of problem with your system, I suppose maybe you could, like you could argue that if you had an old system, you would be freezing up or something all the time. But for the most part, if you have a system that works, they don't have annoying little things that are popping off, right? And they also don't make you change to their new version. That's another thing that I really get annoyed at Windows.
Because Windows now they have the Windows 10, it's just auto
They
updates all
have
the time.
it's force updates,
Yep.
which ends up breaking stuff, and on the Mac
Yep.
side, I avoid that. I do not update until the last possible minute, until I basically have to because something breaks or something, you know
Yeah.
or like something doesn't work on it unless I update it. And that's because a lot of, Apple doesn't really do a good job of like backwards optimizing, or rather, they don't care if they break stuff. So the kind of the companies I think are left to they have to make new shit you know. And I think that it takes them time to do that, and so you have to wait essentially until they figure their shit out, and then you can
Yeah.
do it, you know. And
I mean, I kind of
I
find
don't.
it weird that Apple doesn't do the force updates, but Mac PC does because like Macs, they like
Seems like something that
Apple
Apple would
has
do.
well, yeah, because Apple has control of every single piece of hardware that goes into their thing. They know exactly what's in every single model. I mean, with PCs,
Yet
it's
they
kind of a
don't do a
hodgepodge
force
of
update.
whatever.
Yeah.
And so an
Yeah.
update can break a driver for here or a driver over there. Where with the Mac side of things, it's like no, I know exactly what's going on here, so I can update it and know that it's not going to break any underlying drivers or whatnot. With PC, you don't fucking know. Which yeah, the auto updates are I do find frustrating.
Yeah. And you know, a lot of times they'll introduce problems that you won't be able to figure out. You have to just, you know, figure it out based on
Google
process of
endlessly.
elimination. Yeah. And Google, exactly. So anyways, I think that they're both useful for certain aspects. I definitely wish, you know, obviously we were just talking shit about Windows and, you know, Microsoft. We didn't even say anything about Clipboard, dude, about Clippy.
Flippy, Flippy, classic Flippy. Clippy is an
But
American hero, Brian. I don't know what you're talking about.
Clippy for president. If would you vote like if you just got a a ballot and it was like Clippy, like imagine if you had to choose between Clippy and Donald Trump.
Flippy, Flippy.
Clippy.
Well, I don't know
All right, and
actually.
it looks
There,
like you're trying to run a democracy. Would you like to start a new document? That's what they should do.
I
Maybe
mean,
you should restart this document.
Both Clippy and Donald never get anything actually done. So, what would be the difference, really?
Oh my gosh. Uh, yeah, I think that most people that use Macs either use it because they think they need it, like they think that, or they do need it because of some requirement, right?
Mhm.
People that use PCs because they want to use PCs for the most part. I mean, some people I genuinely want to use Mac, but there's not that many people
Yeah,
that are like, oh man, I really wish that I had a Mac, but I have this stupid PC, you know, unless they're
I used to love Mac,
uneducated
and
about.
I used to want to be like I
At this
used
point, I think. At this
when
point, I
when
think.
I switched over, it was actually really hard for me to do so because I was like, I love the Mac interface and everything, but like it came to a point where like they just weren't giving me anything I could use, and I'm like, all right, I have to switch over to PC, and ever since I did, I had been pleasantly surprised. Um, yeah,
Yeah, my PC is older than my Mac, and it runs faster. So it's got the same, almost the same specs, same graphics card. Well, not same graphics card, same processing power and
same
graphics
processor.
card. Um, uh, what I mean is they're both 8 GB graphics cards.
Yeah,
Same, you know, they've got similar amounts of RAM. Pretty close. My Mac has 24 and my PC has 32. So, but the Mac is consistently, and also the Mac has slightly faster processing speeds because it's 4.2. It's like up to 4.2, whatever, turbo. You
mhm.
know,
Yeah,
but
but I
I
feel
don't
like
really
that
see
drops
that
off
performance.
so fast.
I don't really see that performance. And the other
Well,
thing that I forgot to mention before we close this all out is that there seems to be a lot of glitchy CPU, weird CPU spikes that happen with Mac. I don't know if I'm alone on this. I don't think that I am alone on this, but there are some weird issues, and specifically in audio programs, I think. Like I use Logic and Pro Tools a lot, and I get these weird CPU spikes that come from nowhere, essentially, seemingly, you know, and I don't know what it's due to. I've heard rumors that it might be due to having USB bad USB. I don't know. Like
Captions
the
or
the USB driver on the Mac like doesn't work that well or something, and it interferes. It causes little USB or CPU
CPU
spikes. I've
spikes.
also heard that having an external monitor can cause little CPU spikes. Um,
Hmm.
the other thing is
I-
I notice when I'm watching my cores, it doesn't optimize. Like the hyper threading on the cores is not that good. Like it doesn't spread it out like it should. It'll
Yeah,
peak really high on certain cores, and I'm like,
on a
there's
single
so much
core or
room
whatever.
on these other cores. Yeah.
Just go dump it
So
over
that's
there.
100% Mac poor performance. Like you know, and this is
I
on
wonder if a part of
programs
that too is like maybe the
like
heat-sink stuff too. Because Macs are so
yeah,
they're
what
so
it could be.
and I think that's one of the reasons why they degrade so fast is because they're so compact that the heat can't get pulled out quick enough when you run them at an actual like at a good decent clock. And I think that just burns through the hardware just that much faster.
So the best way to own a Mac is to turn it off every single time you use it. But how many people
I
do that?
never turn off my PC. I always just put to sleep. I never turn it on. Uh,
All right. Well, I think that we have
I
established
think that covers
that
it.
it's up to your personal preference.
PCs are better.
Hey, I'm on a PC
It's up to your
right
personal
now.
preference, but if you like Mac, you're
Got a
wrong.
Mac that's doing its screensaver. You know, to the left of me, stage right, I guess. Right, stage right. I don't know.
See, right?
So it's anybody's game. It's totally up to your personal preference. Parts of me like I think every single day now I think about switching. Uh, I've got Ableton on my PC. You know,
Mhm.
I can get all of my plugins to work on. It'll take a second. Take a day, full day of me doing that, but I can get them to work. So I could switch 100% in PC. I would be curious to see how the workflow would change. Um, and then maybe I could sell my. Nah, I got to keep my Mac for work. Never mind.
Yeah, like
Gotta.
you said to work for your company,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Yeah.
Pro Tools. Pro
But
Tools is the only thing I think you'd want on PC really.
Pro Tools runs great on a PC.
Wait, does
Yep, Pro Tools runs fine on a PC.
no
Actually.
Logic? I was thinking Logic. Why did it say Pro Tools? Logic.
Yeah, Logic.
Oh.
Logic is Mac only.
Only Mac.
But
Yep.
But yeah, like I said, I've been having some weird CPU spike issues with Logic that don't seem to be related to, it seems to be software stuff or driver stuff or something
Sure,
like that.
that's weird. Interesting. Because I think they'd figure out
So,
Logic pretty well because it's their program. They own it.
I know, right? But there's a lot of things that can go wrong when you're using just with all the things that you use peripherals that you use with your computer. So,
Mhm.
all right, and I think with that,
Yeah.
we should
And with
come
that,
to
we'll close it out. Thank you for
close.
joining me, Brian. Thanks
Everyone
for joining us,
go and
Misha.
stay on
Appreciate
your
you.
computers.
Appreciate you chatting with us, and hope you guys can join us again next week. Okay, see you.
All right, bye, guys.